I got one more comment. I know that you just said that you don't really look at names. I'm just going to throw it out there anyway in case you have any interest in it, because you did mention it in our last interview. I think
Mhm.
Nicolas Dalby's fighting this weekend, so that's a close
Yeah.
time frame. So if he were to get a win, I don't know if you're still interested in him because you did show out this last weekend, but I just want to put it out there in case you do have any interest in it.
Yeah, I still think he's a decent name, especially if he wins. You know, like if he loses, then I don't think there'll be really. I don't think it'll make sense. I don't think there'll be any interest. I mean, if that's who the UFC chooses, that's who the UFC chooses. At the end of the day, it's their show, and I'll fight who they tell me to. But if I get to have a little say in it, like if he wins that one, I think he's like 5-1 in his last six, or something like that, or six. You know, he's won a lot lately. Some of them are kind of closer decisions, but he's won a lot lately. So if he wins this one, then I still think that makes a lot of sense. He'll still be, rankings wise, if you're looking at like Tapology, he should still be like, 25-30 range with a win, or maybe even a little higher. So yeah, that could still make a lot of sense. He's a big name, especially in Europe. So that would be a cool way to get like some different eyes on me,
Yeah,
and just like build the fight in a, you know, especially these like international fights are cool, man. Like you love a badass American versus a badass American, but like it's cool to see like you know, an Australian versus a an Australian versus like a Scotsman or something like that. Like it's like not, it's not just like the American or the Brazilian or the Russian. It's like some other, Polish guy versus Polish guy versus like a Chilean, or it's like it's
yeah.
cool to see like different countries go against each other. It kind of feels like, you know other sports like that on top of like an actual fight.
The
So
ones who
I
are like
like those.
less represented almost too, not Americans, but when you get
Yeah,
two other countries that aren't America.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Or like, yeah, like I would say like probably the big three must be like America, Brazil, and Russia, right?
right.
So you see a ton of players from those three. So you see like, when you see like a country that only has like a handful of guys, you're like, especially against another country that only has a handful of guys, like, oh, this is cool. Like both of their countries are like hanging on this. It's like there's so many Americans in the UFC, and there's so many successful Americans. It's not like every American UFC fan's like hanging on, like we've got to have this one American guy win. It's like, no, you've got like half the roster's American probably.
Yeah.
So it's for the other countries, it's more like, dude, we've got five guys in the UFC. Like this guy has to win. Like, please, come on. They're cheering for each other. So I don't know how many Nicolas Dalby's from Denmark, I believe, and I don't know how many Danish fighters there are in the UFC. So that would be a cool one to go against a Canadian.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of eyes because he's only one of a few. So that's also part of the point you're trying to make.